What is good to you?
Good to me, I guess, is just going off action. So many people are waiting for something to be perfect before they actually take any action, but the act of confidence comes before the feeling. So I think we just need to try and get to good before we can ever get to great or excellent. And I think good is enough.
Welcome to Chasing Good, a circle group podcast with the aim to help us better understand the good that's happening in the world today. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to Chasing Good. Here with me today, we have Cooper Chapman. Cooper, thank you so much for joining us today, mate.
Mate, thanks for having me. It's good to always jump on a couple podcasts out there and get to share my story. And yeah, hopefully today's one we can get some nice bits out of my story. Chasing Good's very aligned with the world that I live. I have a business called the Good Human Factory, so I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit today as well. So looking
Mate,
forward to having a chat.
Absolutely. And you know what, funnily enough, I didn't mention this before, but so when I came up with the concept of Chasing Good, what I wanted, I thought this, had this brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. I'll call it Good Humans. Google came in straight away. I'm like, no, there's a very, very good podcast that exists already.
Actually, funnily enough, when I launched Good Humans, I had there's another one called Good Humans.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, there's another one called like Raising Good Humans. And I
Yeah.
and I was like, it was like established and had quite a few episodes, but it had like minimal 5-star ratings. You could tell it wasn't a very big podcast, and I was like, well, I'm going to call mine Good Humans with Cooper Chapman, and yeah,
Yeah.
mine seemed to taken off a little bit, which is
Mate,
nice that people like to
mate.
listen to the stories that I get to tell.
So good, so good. Good on you. So, well, look, if we could start from the beginning, mate, just to have a little bit of a understanding. So, um, tell us a little bit about your story, your background, where you've come from, and then we can dive into what you're doing at the moment with Good Humans too, the Good Humans Factory as well.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sydney's Northern Beaches, lived a pretty normal upbringing, I'd like to think. I've got three sisters, one older, two younger, and a beautiful, loving family. I feel very privileged to have a family that's still together, still very much a family-oriented life I live, which is beautiful. Growing up in Sydney, I wouldn't say I was upper class. We definitely were comfortable, but never went without, but never had anything too extravagant. My dad was always pushy on us to say just appreciation, not expectation. Like you have a lot more than a lot of people, so we got taught some values like that from a pretty young age. As I said, we didn't go without. We got every opportunity we needed to get to where we are today, but we never, yeah, I wouldn't say very spoilt at all. Having four kids, I can imagine for my parents it was a bit of a struggle at times. So, yeah, they did a very good job raising us kids. I guess the part of my story that's quite well known is I was a professional surfer for a very long time. From about 10 years old, I started competing surfing. From 11, 12, was sponsored by Rip Curl up until 16, and then went over to the brand Hurley for about 7 years. Rode for them, won Australian titles at 14 years old, and got to represent the country multiple times all around the world in surfing as a junior, which was really cool. Finished school and went straight into that. That was what my future looked like. That's where I really thought I was going to be for the next 10 years, which I was. From 18 to 28, I traveled the world as a professional surfer. Had an extraordinary life. Was very fortunate to get to experience amazing people, cultures, and have a career that, yeah, was quite special. I never quite got to what my big goal was, which was to make the world tour of surfing, which is the top 32 in the world. Um, but looking back on my career, I was always sort of in the top 100 in the world, sort of ranked between that 30 to 100 on the secondary tour we have called the World Qualifying Series, which was very competitive and awesome. I got to travel the world and compete at that level with people from all around the globe. So yeah, I never got to the level that I hoped to get to, but then I look back now on my career with nothing but gratitude. I traveled the world, went surfing. I know so many people who don't quite get to the epitome of their sport where everybody dreams of getting, and look back for the rest of their life at their career like it was a failure, like they didn't quite achieve what they set out to do. Whereas, although I didn't, I also look back and realize I achieved far more than I would have ever hoped for as a 10-year-old. So, yeah, that was a big part of my journey, professional surfing. Then a few things happened in my life which changed and sent me on the direction I'm on now, which is working as a mental health business owner, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So can we dive in? Can we dive into that? So that's a massive transition. Professional surfing, mental health business owner. Can we talk about a little bit about what's brought about this change and kind of and set you on this direction?
Yeah, so I've had some family history of mental illness. I watched my dad suffer quite a bit when I was younger. I had an uncle take his own life when I was quite young. So I was always very aware that mental illness is a thing and it might be something that I might struggle with. I also had a mum and family that sort of around me made me aware that, hey, mental health can be, or mental illness can be hereditary, it can run in the family. So I always carried this underlying fear upon reflection during my teen years and early 20s of, oh, maybe I'm going to go down this mental illness track. Because of that, I was always very forward thinking. I developed quite a lot of skills and tried to look outside the box for different things that I could do to take care of myself because I was always very fearful and felt embarrassed to go and see a psychologist if I was struggling because I was living this very gifted, extraordinary life. Like, who was I to go and complain about mental health issues when I'm living this beautiful life? So because of that, I developed all these great skills, never with an intention of starting a business or doing anything in the mental health world. But then my younger sister back in 2018 now, about 5 years ago now, was in her last year of high school. At the time, I'm like 24 years old, living this great life, traveling, surfing. And my younger sister came home from school and she said that one of the boys in a year had taken his own life. And hearing of youth suicide is something that everybody will say is dreadful. But I was just sitting there at the dinner table with my family, just in my head, going like, "Far out! I'm living this extraordinary life, but there's these kids in my local area that are struggling and don't have these skills and access to the amazing people I have around me to help me when I'm struggling." But as most of us do, I kind of looked up some of the stats and went, "Oh wow, this is a pretty big problem we have here in Australia, mental illness," and chucked up an Instagram story and wrote a platitude like most of us do, and life went on. 2 weeks later, we're sitting around the dinner table, exact situation like I was 2 weeks before. Mum, dad, three sisters, and Sophia, my younger sister, said another boy in her year had taken his own life. And that was when I was just sort of there and had a bit of a reflective moment where I was like, you know what, I just can't sit around and do nothing about this. If I can go and speak to one kid at a school and share my story and a few of the lessons I've learned and it helps them by 1%, then I've done my job. And yeah, that was 4 years ago. Now it's been a big journey to get to where I am now, but over the last 4 years I've spoken to close to 30 or 40,000 students, to thousands of different corporates for companies like McDonald's, Telstra, Apple, and yeah, it's been a crazy journey, sort of retiring from surfing, going into this full time and trying to learn how to build a business, how to make a big impact. But yeah, just trying to, the real baseline of what I do with the Good Human Factory is connect curious minds with simple mental health strategies. Mental health is something that quite often when you bring it up to people, they automatically go to mental illness and check out. Whereas the Good Human Factory, what I'm trying to create is something that everybody can feel like they can get something out of. Everybody has mental health. Only 20% of us have a mental illness. So my whole overall arching thing is just like, if you come to any of the work I do, whether it be my podcast, my workshops, my merch, my communities I've built, it's all around just giving people different ideas and connections to different strategies and different things that we can do to take better care of our mental health.
Mate, incredible. Kudos, seriously, genuinely. What a the fact that you can talk to the communities and the businesses, the merchant, that like this is and to have already taken that from a professional surfing career is bloody sensational. To reference. There's a couple of things to unpack. I guess firstly, I was curious to understand because it sounds you've got this. You obviously must be super action orientated because you don't get to a professional level of any sport without a massive action orientation. But then as well, I'm curious to see if that underpins how successfully you've been able to step into, make the transition from professional surfing into into this business. Do you think there's anything underlying there, like from an action perspective, and just kind of like doing that creates the progress?
I think there's just a quest for greatness. I feel like by chasing to get to the very epitome of a sport, it shows you that with a lot of hard work, with 15 years of hard work, is what it takes to get to what you'd call the upper micro percent of an industry. And that's what professional sport is. When you're ranked in the top 100 surfers out of billions of surfers on the planet, you kind of get that feeling of how much work and dedication it takes to get to the top. And I think that mindset's something that I've really brought into my business. The way I look at it is there's so many people around me who are incredible public speakers, because I guess the main role of my business is keynote speaking and podcast hosting. Two things that I had no education in, two things that I have had no formal training in, but two things that I've learned that I'm not trying to be the best in 2 years. I'm not trying to be the best in 4 years. I look at it that I'm chasing in, by the time I'm in my mid 40s, it took me 15 years to get to the top 100 in surfing. If I want to get to the top 100 speakers, then it's a long road. Right now, I look at it like I'm the third year into what I'm doing. I'm the third year apprentice. Like, I barely know what I'm doing just yet. Although I am having a lot of success and it is doing well, I think by having that mindset of like to get to the top, it takes years to get there is something that I'm definitely carrying into business. And I think it's a big superpower for what I'm doing is not having this expectation of being somewhere really quickly because I understand that it takes years of work and getting stuff wrong and changing and adapting and adjusting to get to somewhere that is very, very highly touted, I guess. And yeah, I feel like that's where I want to go with my speaking. But I feel like I said, I'm very at the start of the journey now with this new business, but I think it's carried across a lot from the sport.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Oh man, like you've absolutely you've 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 transferred greatness well because it's doing the fact the brands you're talking to, the support and the community you've got. That's awesome. And so, can we talk a little bit about mental health? And I guess I don't know, it was interesting to hear about how you've got 20% mental illness and then 80% is mental health. Can we talk about what you see the current landscape is, or you see what the, I guess, biggest issues that most people are facing are?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing that I really try and talk about, kind of what you were just repeating there, is the fact that 20% of us have mental illness, but 100% of us have mental health. And the more that I look at the mental health industry, and there's so many people that are doing amazing work, do not get me wrong, but 99% of the industry is really dialed in on mental illness. It's really dialed in depression, anxiety, suicide, helping people who are struggling with a mental illness. So 80% of the country disassociates with anything to do with mental health, but it's like, no, we need to change the language. Mental illness is something that, yeah, affects 20%, but mental health affects all of us. Most of us are kind of drifting through life sitting between a 5 and a 7. Why not make everybody jump up the scale to a 2 or 3 up to an 8 out of 10 how you're feeling, or a 10 out of 10? Like, so many of us are just happy and fine where we are, but the whole point of the Good Human Factory is to try and just give everyone that little kickstart to improve their well-being. Doesn't matter how good your well-being it is, it can always be better. So I think a lot of the landscape where I see my position in the industry is trying to make everybody feel included in the mental health discussion. Because if 80% of us who don't have a mental illness yet all develop a few skills, improve our mental health by a few percent, then hey, that 80% grows to 83%. And that turns thousands of less people in our country without a mental illness. So I'm just trying to come from a different approach. So many of us, and like I said, a lot of the funding, 99% of it, I'd like to think, goes towards this really putting a band-aid on the problem, whereas I'm trying to help with the education side of stuff, with the inspiration and with the motivation side of stuff, so that people hopefully listening to this podcast and listening to my message go, oh yeah, wow, I haven't thought about it like that. It's all about trying to shift the perspective, and that's where I feel like we're going to see some real systemic change.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if we're talking about the why behind what you're doing so far and where you've gotten to, has that changed? Because obviously you've mentioned that you've started from this point of I want to make a difference, and you've already made that impact, right? Like you've already achieved your goal. How have you kind of adapted your goals to like where? Yeah, has your why evolved through this process?
I mean, it still always will come back to that connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies. It's like, sure, your goal can be to help one person. I achieved that in the first day. Now it's like, okay, how many people can I help? And that's what I see, that it just turns into a game of scale. How can you get more people to listen to hopefully a message that now, with thousands of data points and thousands of bits of feedback, my imposter syndrome's been quashed a bit, to know that, okay, the stuff that I am doing, I have so much evidence now, is really helping. So now I'm like, okay, how do I scale it to more people? So as much as, yeah, I've reached one of my goals, the goals just continue to expand, and the goals are going to always expand into how can we help more people? How can we come up with new programs that are more relatable to people? How can we create a new podcast show that helps more people? It's just a massive opportunity always to grow. But yeah, for right now, I'm in an exciting kind of phase. I just employed my first staff member to help with the operations and help me strategize and structure everything. I mean, I'm just a young retired pro surfer without any business or speaking or any of education into all of this stuff that I've kind of thrown myself in the deep end, whether it be e-com, trying to sell merch, podcast editing, putting stuff up, uploading, trying to find sponsors for it, pitching out to schools, doing workshops, building communities, doing the back end of website building. Like, I've done everything myself. So now I'm in a stage where I'm bringing someone on board to help me, which hopefully will just allow us to have more creative opportunities to, yeah, help people. Because like I said, I feel like there's a big opportunity for us to be this mental health organization, not a mental illness organization. And I feel like the more audience I speak to, the feedback I get is that that is a message that is coming across. So it's just about continually refining it. And then, yeah, those goals will just continue to grow.
Yeah, okay. If we're talking, for your mental health, right? It's obviously you're on an exciting pathway. I always struggle, I guess, from my mental health journey. I'm a champion at moving the goalpost myself, right? I'll constantly, I'll set a goal and I'll achieve it and I won't be satisfied with it. And then it will just be a constant iteration process where you're chasing and you're going, and I imagine, having the successes in life that you've had, you're possibly the same. How do you find, from your own personal mental health perspective, that you are able to manage the achieving goals, like the constant pushing of goalposts? I've always found that to be something that I've never really been able to manage effectively. Is that something you're able to?
Nah. For me, it's an interesting one. I try and look at my goals and trying to achieve things as like kind of external validation. Like, that's what I do, but it's not who I am. So when we align
Yeah.
our goals and our whole well-being and our identity and our self-worth on external validation, on the goals that we set, if we reach them, and then we feel good. If we don't reach them, we feel average. That's how I used to really base my whole identity. I was Cooper the pro surfer. When I did well in my surf comps, I'd feel really good. And then when I was doing poorly, I'd feel really bad. I'd feel like there's something wrong with me. Everyone was judging me, which they weren't, but that's just how I felt. Whereas I got told something from my sports psychologist, and this is really what I talk about in my keynote. He said to me, pro surfing's what you do, but not who you are. And then he said to me, what are your values? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, what are your values? And I was like, I guess like kindness, respect, honesty. And he's like, yeah, but how well do you actually live to those values? And that kind of was the first time that I had this mindset shift and understanding that, hey, if I can live to my values, I can anchor my well-being around how well I live to my values, how well I treat people, how well I treat myself, and what my values are. Because that doesn't matter whether you're successful or not when it comes to our careers. How we live to our values can stay consistent. So now I obviously have a lot of goals and I care a lot to reach them, but my biggest thing is trying to live to my values each day. So my 5 values: responsibility. I think that's the first step for all of us, building the awareness, but then also taking action that we have to do something for our mental health each day. The second one I talk about is gratitude. It's something that it's really important to me. I've seen and spoken to so many experts in different fields, and the more people I speak to who seem to be happy and healthy, gratitude pops up. So I talk about that in my keynote quite a bit, a bunch of the science behind it. I then talk about empathy. I think empathy is a value that we should all be really dialed into, how well we can listen to others, how well we can connect with others, and how well we can just sort of ask why when we don't agree with somebody. Go, okay, I wonder why they're doing this. I think it's such an important trait. Mindfulness as well is a skill that I feel like all of us need to work on every single day. We live in a world that is so full of distractions, and we can very easily blame everything on the social media companies and everything else, but it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to start to somewhat fight back against this and go, you know what, I do need to actually work on my attention, work on my presence with people. And how do we do that? Through different mindfulness practices, whether it be practicing meditation or just dialing into your senses, what you can see, what you can hear, what you can feel. All these things are so important, and they're really starting to evaporate for humans, and we have to take that control back ourselves. And the last value that I really talk about, and this is something that I really anchor so much of my well-being around, is kindness. Whether it be being kind to myself through doing all the different habits and doing all the different healthy things that I know are important to me to live at a high quality life. But I always say, like, knowledge is knowing, wisdom is doing. All of us know the healthy things we should be doing, but are we actually doing them? So kindness to ourselves is so important, whether it be doing breath work, meditation, all these exercises each day. That's just being kind to yourself. Then there's being kind to others. All the data and science leads to people who are kind to others and kind to the environment. feel happier in themselves. It releases serotonin and oxytocin, the happiness chemicals, by practicing kindness. So yeah, I break kindness into being kind to others, being kind to ourselves, and being kind to the environment. So they're the 5 values that I feel like if I'm actively trying to pursue those values and live to them each day, then good mental health is a byproduct of this. Whereas I see so many people that say they're really struggling with their mental health, but then their values and their daily habits are so out of whack. It's like, well, of course, if you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, your relationships are shit, your finances are out of whack. Then your mental health is going to be in a bad spot. Whereas people work the other way and go, oh, I've got a mental illness. I go and see a doctor. I get put on a SSRI. It's like, well, let's work out the problem. Why you're feeling like this. Let's work out these different systems that you have in place for yourself. So that's what I just try and encourage people to do. Do a bit of reflection, think about what your values are, but then start to think, how well do I actually live to them as well?
It's it's such an important piece of the puzzle. I love how you've shifted that back to the individual accountability. And again, this action orientation, like everything that you do flows around like individual accountability and action orientation, like self-awareness and action base. And it's so refreshing to hear because shit, there's a lot of talkers around. And so like to see that you're doing, not only are you like doing and creating, but what you're teaching really you're living in every way, shape or form, and it's reflective through the success in your business too. So kudos, mate. Like fantastic. Now I do want to shift on because like as you know, the context of the podcast is called Chasing Good, right? And what you've just described, mate, is beyond good. It's bloody sensational. It's really, really, truly fantastic and so relevant to so many people in the world. And I imagine, and I am confident that you're helping a lot of people. But I really do hope that, truly from the bottom of my heart, that you are able to continue in every measure, scaling to impact more lives as possible. But I'm keen to understand, by your definition, what is good to you? Like, what do you think?
Good to me, I guess, is just going off action. I feel like so many people waiting. I'll use this in an example of confidence. Like, so many people are waiting for something to be perfect before they actually take any action, but the act of confidence comes before the feeling. So I think we just need to try and get to good before we can ever get to great or excellent. And I think good is enough quite often. I think good is actually just doing something. For instance, I have a board next to me right now. I'll turn my screen. You can see it. It says full potential on it. And it has 13 different daily tasks over 7 days. So you average that out. That means there's 101 tasks to do a week. And I'm like, I know I'm never going to get 100 out of 100, but good for me is more than 50%, actually doing something. So for instance, on my board, it says breathwork, meditation, take supplements, 30 minutes of exercise, get in nature, do some reading, stretching, work, communication as a couple, cooking at home, taping my mouth to sleep, call my family, drink enough water, and no phone before 7 a.m., 7 p.m. So that says my full potential. So if I do all of those every single day, I get 101 out of the week. For instance, my first week doing it, I only got 59. My second week, I only got 61. But that's still 59 good things that I've done for myself this week. So I think for good is just trying to go, okay, what are the things that are actually positive for me? And I think a lot of us are just so blinded by just not wanting to do reflection. So I'll give you this quote, and I think this is what chasing good should be. It's being conscious of our choices and taking responsibility for our actions. And so many of us aren't. It's from a book called The Peaceful Warrior. It's a great movie as well. And I think that's so important. So many of us all day, every day are making choices that we're not actually being conscious of the repercussions of them. The food we're eating, what time we're going to bed, if we're going on our phone after 7 p.m, getting blue light, getting cortisol by going on social media. Like all of these things have a cascading effect, which end up leading us to bad. But every decision we make, every choice we make is going to have a net positive or a net negative, so a good or a bad kind of outcome. So I think the more that we can be conscious of those choices every day, and when we're making choices that aren't good for us, taking responsibility for it, going, you know what? I could be better. I'm going to try and do better for that, and actually keeping yourself accountable. I don't know, I probably went off way on tangents. But that's kind of how I see
No, no,
what good is in my
no, no.
life.
Yeah, no, fantastic, absolutely, I love how on that you kind of you're focused on how that's like good. The concept of good enough is really powerful. How there's this is perfect for me. If I do this, this is my best self almost, I guess. And then but you still are able to find pride in yourself by achieving like the 50% mark. Fours open doors type thing. I suppose like
Yeah.
I really like that. How have you found that approach, or in general, not just with yourself but within the community, what impacts others as well? Because what I find is such a common theme, and so what I do with these podcasts, as an example, right, is I collect the data for all of the answers. So this is going to go into this answer is going to be collected and categorized, and then over however many podcasts I can get done, I'm just going to continue collecting the answers, and we're going to try and find what it means to be good in the modern day, like an overarching answer based on the statistical averages of people, and I like a lot. What the common theme so far has been is that you have to look after yourself to look after others. Um, have you seen examples of that in your community, and I guess for yourself as well? Like, how much more are you able to show up for the day for other people when you hit that 101 things of 101 tasks, as an example?
Oh, I just can see like my mood, if I'm in a good mindset or not, if I haven't been doing too much. Like, for instance, the start of last week, I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at home and I ticked off all of them. But when I'm on the road and I'm traveling, I don't get the opportunity to tick off as many of them. Obviously, that's just a bit of an excuse, but that's just how it ends up being quite often when I'm on the road traveling for work. So yeah, I just don't think as a whole I don't show up as better in life. It just doesn't put me in a good mindset, and I can kind of you could look at the data to sort of be like, yeah, I was a bit flat that day. Oh yeah, look, that 2 days before that I hadn't really been doing all these things I know are good for me. Then of course I'm going to feel that way. Having that data is so important, but I think being able to fill your own cup is so important. I'm very lucky. I have this community called the 1% Club on Instagram, where every morning I send a guided 10-minute meditation. Every night I write 3 things I'm grateful for on my Instagram story, and I send it to everyone in the group chat. There's like 1,800 members from all strangers around the world now, and the whole goal is to give 1% of your day to your mental health. 1% of a 24-hour day is 14 minutes. So it's 10 minutes meditation in the morning, 4 minutes of gratitude at night. You've given 1% of your day to your mental health. And we're like 8 times more likely to maintain a healthy habit if we have an accountability group around us. So that's why I started these Instagram groups. It started 850 or 820 days ago now, with like 30 people in one group chat. Now there's 9 with like 150 in each group chat. And just by seeing this every day for the last 2 years, people write 3 things they're grateful for. There's been like 700,000 gratitudes written in from strangers all around the world. It's completely free. Anyone listening right now that's like, oh, you know what, I want to join that, you can just send at the Good Human Factory DM on Instagram saying I want to join the club. But what I've seen through that is quite often people be like, oh, I've had a pretty bad day today, but I'm going to write my gratitudes. And you can see just people showing up on those hard days is helping them shift that little mindset to a grateful mindset, to spotting the good things in their life rather than the bad things. And yeah, you can see people check out for weeks at a time where they don't write in, and then they come back and they go, oh, I've missed it. I need to get this back in my life. Like, I need to flip my mindset again. So I can see by the actions of people is clearly changing their world as well.
Yeah, of course. Have you found that having built these communities, you have an obligation more so not just to yourself but to your community to kind of be more consistent with your own practices and kind of lead from the front?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I started the 1% Club, was because I was like, you know what? I'm not meditating every day, and I talk about the positives of it. If I create this accountability group, it's for me as well. And then, yeah, now I haven't missed a day for 800 days. So 2.5 years, I've sent a meditation every single
So good.
morning, and
So
every
good.
single night I've written the 3 gratitudes on my Instagram story and sent it. And yeah, like I said, there's 1,800 members now each night. I'd say between like 2 to 400 will write in their 3 gratitudes. So there's 6 to 1,200 they write three, so there's like 6 to 1,200 gratitudes written in every single day, and that's been for the last 2 years now. So it's just like continually growing, but it's pretty cool to see it. But yeah, because of that, I definitely do feel an obligation now to not miss a day, because I know there's if I don't send the guided meditation, there's 1,800 people who don't get it sent to them, and I get people if I'm a bit late one morning because I have something and I forget. I very rarely forget anymore. It's built into my sort of DNA now. But yeah, if I have bad internet and it doesn't get sent in the morning, I'll have people be like, "Hey, where's the meditation for today?" So I do have a bit of a responsibility, I feel like now, but it's great. I know how much impact it has on so many.
That's a lot of pressure, eh? It's a huge amount of
It's not
pressure.
pressure.
No.
Nobody's paying for it. It's free. If I really wanted, I could say, "I'm really sorry, guys. It's stopping today." Like it's, you know what I mean. There's no investment. It's free for everyone to join, and it's also just about teaching people the habit. I'm sure if I stopped it tomorrow, or I'm sure if I really wanted, I could send in the messages. Hey, can somebody take lead for a week and send the meditations every morning for me? And I'd have someone jump up out of every group. Like the communities have all been together for years now, so it would flow without me. It would probably run without me, and everyone's even when I'm like late to write my gratitudes in, I still see everyone do theirs. Like I don't need to be there anymore for it to run, but I definitely help with the. Well, I'm the only one who helps with the keeping it flowing. So there is a bit of work involved, but it's just building a community. And then I've got 1,800 people who, when I drop new merch, are happy to get involved in the merch. When I drop new workshops, are happy to talk to their community about it. So it's just building community of giving free resources, and then on the way back around, hopefully with a bit of Gary V sort of mentality of like just give, and then ask for something in return a bit later. So it's kind of where I'm at with the 1% Club.
The theory of reciprocity there is so strong, because like the giving, like I don't think people, fully understand just how much work goes into, A, creating a podcast, B, like all of these activities that you're doing and just giving away, a lot of work. It's not simple stuff. You got to upskill yourself. You got to go through the effort of, you got to buy all the kit. You got to learn how to use it, set it up, and then you got to consistently every morning create meditations. You got to be unique. You got to show up. You got to be energetic.
I don't
And you're
create the
doing it for free, mate.
meditation. I send a link to a YouTube video. So it probably takes me a minute and a half in the morning and 4 minutes at night to do the club, which isn't that much. 5 minutes investment a day to foster an 1,800
How
person
long did it
community to
take you?
hopefully have.
How long did it take you though to find that? To get that down to 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes after two
I mean,
years.
it's never been that long to do that part of it. If I'm being completely honest, it used to be a bit trickier because Instagram continually changes its features. They used to only let 32 in a group chat, so at one stage I had 27 group chats. So that took a lot longer to sort of have to
Okay.
go through. And for ages, I used to count how many gratitudes there were each week, so then I could read it out in the podcast and try and encourage everyone to make it bigger each week. But then that was just like a waste of time and a mission, right, counting them all. But then now the system's pretty good. You can have 250 in a group chat on Instagram, so it's small. It's down to only 9 groups, so it's a bit easier to control everything. But the hardest thing, to be honest, is just adding people in, because everyone has to individually be added in when people want to join. But it's just all part of the beast, I guess. I have different ideas to potentially monetize it down the road and make it into an app or something, but I've always said it's going to be free and always will be. So I'll probably just keep growing the Instagram version of it.
Mm,
And like I said, the main thing is if I get it to 5,000 members and 10% of the people in there are customers of my merch, there's 500 customers. Like it's a massive financial incentive if I can continue to grow and foster the community.
yeah, absolutely. But it's also like it's such a positive based community where you're really looking after people and giving like genuinely, and that they'd feel happy to purchase from that kind of community too. If we're looking
Yeah, exactly.
at,
We're just big happy family now.
yeah, man, so good, so good. I'm curious about the meditation style. Right, so the I've gone through a big kind of meditation journey myself. I meditate I'll on a good week, once a day, on a or a couple of times a day maybe, on a bad week a few times a week, and that's taken me a long time to kind of get to the flow of that, and a long time for me to find something that I enjoy doing. Do you have a particular format that you typically try to follow, or how do you strictly guided? Do you try? Yeah, what do you typically lean in towards?
Well, with the 1% Club, I just send a YouTube link where I just type in guided 10-minute meditation and randomly pick one because there's thousands of them on there. I personally don't actually do that meditation each day because I think the guided stuff's great as an entry level, and I send a new one every day for anyone who's new members to click and do that one. And a lot of people do the one each day that comes through. But for me, I feel like guided is kind of your beginner level for meditations. I like to try and somewhat challenge myself and do things that are a bit more mantra based. I have some friends who have a meditation school and an app called Manifesti. Um, which is incredible. It has a whole range of meditations on there, but it is a paid app, so I don't like to promote to my. I want the smallest barrier to entry as possible for everyone in the 1% Club. So I use that app, whereas I don't. I say to people, download it absolutely. That's what I use. But I don't want anyone to be like, oh, it costs money, I'm not going to do it. So I just send the YouTube links. And I think it's a good way to start is to have the guided. And then as you continue to advance, getting onto stuff like Vedic meditation, just sitting there in complete silence, to different ones like the ones I use on Manifesti, which is more of a mantra meditation, a bit of a guide in, and then like 15 to 18 minutes of just a song in the background while you, or different beats in the background while you kind of just try and replay a mantra in your head. So I continually evolve. To be honest, at the moment, I do more breath work than I even meditate. I try to meditate every day. I actually like lie on a Shakti mat at night, me and my partner, and we'll do like a Joe Dispenza 20-minute meditation on the Shakti thing to sort of tick a few birds with one stone. But I do a lot of breath work. Every time when I wake up before I get out of bed, I'll do like a 20-minute breath work just to sort of prime the body. The breath holds, I like to think, are a bit of a meditation as well, trying to quiet the mind and everything. So I just do a bit of balance of each. But the main thing is just each day trying to sit with your thoughts and not be distracted by a device or something in the real world, like having your eyes closed and just being aware and trying to slow it down.
Yeah, okay, mate. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, the Shakti's a good one. The Shakti and Joe Dispenza combo I've tried a couple of times myself. It's a good. I fall asleep, to be honest, especially at night time.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
You peel yourself off
it's
the Shakti.
absolutely, absolutely. Mate, this community that you've created, and this level of positivity that continues to shine. Where do you want to see it go? What's the end goal?
I mean, I don't think there's an end goal. The end goal is nobody have a mental illness and everybody be happy, but I think that's obviously unachievable. So the end goal is to how many people can we influence? How many people can we shift that mindset in? How many curious minds can we connect with mental health strategies? So there's a lot of different avenues and different things that I'm looking at doing and ideas that I've got. As I said earlier in the chat, I just employed someone of like obviously through this chat, you've heard how many different things I juggle. Just from the 1% Club to my workshops to my podcast. I do all the editing, everything myself, distribution, multiple episodes a week. So I juggle a lot of things right now. So by employing someone, it's going to allow me to really structure and put some systems in place for growth. My biggest thing is my keynote speaking. I'm super busy at the moment. I think I did like, what did I do? I did like 35 keynotes in the last 8 weeks or something, which is just crazy. 2 years ago, I would have dreamed of having as much work as I do right now, which is really cool to know that different people are spreading word of mouth. I don't do any marketing for my workshops except for free social media stuff. So to know that right now I'm getting 1 to 2 requests a day through word of mouth and whatnot without doing any digital marketing or without any paid advertising. So I feel like I'm definitely on the right path. Now it's about building systems. So a few goals is to have plenty more of my keynotes next year, a lot of schools and corporates, but I'm also about to start bringing in a few different speakers under the Good Human umbrella. A bunch of my ambassadors with the Good Human Factory are top level athletes in the country, from Paralympian of the Year Ben Tudhope, who's a bronze medalist at the Paralympics for snowboarding last year, to Sam Fricker as an Olympic diver for and also does some really cool work with the environment. So I want to, and they both want to get some more speaking work because they want to make more money. Because being a professional athlete, a young athlete in Australia, is very hard to, as glamorous as it looks from the outside, to make any sort of money to support yourself is near impossible in a lot of sports. So I'd love the Good Human Factory to be a platform for young athletes who are my ambassadors to come and speak under me, share their story, inspire people with their stories too, because I think storytelling and having the confidence to share your story and think back and reflect on the things that have helped you can really help a lot of other people. So the goal next year is to bring on a handful of other speakers under the Good Human Factory, pitch them out to all of my clients, which is going to be really fun to see how that takes off. Merchandise is something that I'm really excited to grow a bit more of. I think having messaging on merch that is powerful and kind of quirky and is a great way to build community and spread that message and give the community a way to spread the message as well. So going to continue to grow the merch next year. Podcast is always just sort of ticking over. Got some new things coming up with that. I've got all new tiles, new music, and a bunch of big guests coming, so that's exciting. Also, I want to throw some events next year. I've built such a beautiful network of really intelligent people that I want to use the Good Human Factory as a brand to put on some events where we can, put on some particular events around the country, which are sort of unlocking the human potential, connecting with different podcast guests and different experts who I have in my network now to put on some really powerful day events that people can get a lot out of and come to and feel inspired to, take better care of their mental health, but also just get the most out of their life. There's a handful of things that are very kind of short-term goals that I'm working on. But as all of them grow, more things will evolve. Like I said earlier, an app is something that I want to look at in the future. I've got potential to create some diaries and some resources around mental health. Also have some ideas for some e-learning models to on-sell to schools and corporates. So all of the ideas are under my umbrella. Now it's just trying to execute them.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've built a platform for it, haven't you? That's an exciting time, man. That's an exciting time. You transition from startup to scale up, hey? You're in a great spot. Kudos, mate. Kudos. And the fact
I just feel like I was just going to say probably what you were going to say. It's built on some good foundations now. I feel like I really spread my knowledge as wide as I could. I built all different foundations, a few that are revenue creating, a few that are community building, a few that are really dialed into the impact. So I feel like it's kind of building an ecosystem where it can be a financially profitable business so I can scale it and grow it and help more people, but also a business that's always at the forefront of trying to be innovative with different techniques, trying to be innovative with speaking to experts through the podcast, and just, trying to connect curious minds with simple mental health strategies. It always comes back to that.
Was that something for you that was a difficult kind of transition? I know for myself, I almost, when I first started Circle Group, it was like a really something I battled with, the concept of making money, like becoming financially stable, paying myself an income. When the goal is to do something more, did you struggle with that kind of the monetization of the business, recognizing that you actually had to make money and reward yourself and live sustainably and also to be able to build a business?
Oh, definitely. Obviously, as soon as you tell people that you're a mental health organization, 99% of people think you're a charity. So that's been something that I looked at going the charity route for a while because I was like, okay, people associate mental health with charity. But then I got some advice from a few different people, one being Hugh Van Cuylenberg, who started the Resilience Project, an incredible book. He has the Imperfects podcast, very similar blueprint to what that I'm trying to do. I feel like there's a lot of things that I'm copying him, which I'm sure you can ask him and he said it's okay. He's very successful in his own right and I'm trying to do it my own way. But he said to me, go the business route because for one, if you're a charity, it puts a target on your back for the fact that you pay yourself a decent wage and people are like, oh, you're stealing money from the charity. Where he's like, if you're a business, there's no ceiling. Why is there any harm in, why should you be able to go and work one job and make a whole lot of money, but you go and work this one and are expected to do it for free? That's not how the world works. So it's taken me a while to improve that mindset. And then as well, even with my speaking, I didn't realize, and I had no intention or idea at all when I got into public speaking, how lucrative it is. I was just like, whatever, I'll just charge myself out and go and speak for $500 or whatever at schools and at corporates. But then I started to realize that I'm actually not getting much work because my prices are too low, because most speakers are anywhere from $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 for their hour keynotes. When I was coming in at $300 for my first year or two for a keynote, no one was booking me. And I realize now it's because when you've got a choice between a 300, a 1,000, a 3,000, and a $5,000 speaker, most people are going to pick the like $1,000 to $2,000 one. So once I actually started raising my prices and being competitive against other people in my industry, I started to get far more work. So it has been a hard one for me to sit with how well I get paid for quite a lot of my talks now. But I just have to look back at the data and look back at the feedback and be like, well, if people are seeing value in it, it's learning to realize that, hey, you don't always have to trade time for money. It's trading value for money. And if you're getting 100 people sending you feedback that it's really helped them and changed their life, and you charged $5,000 for your hour keynote, then there's nothing wrong with that. So it's just learning and coming to terms with it's okay for that. And starting to realize that the business has the potential to be quite lucrative, but it's like how there's got to be ways that businesses where everybody can be happy. The people who are paying the money for your workshop are happy. They see the value in what they paid for it. The people who are attendees of my workshops are happy with it. And then I get paid well for it. Everyone's happy. It's quite rare that there's a business like that. Quite often you get someone build a house and they go, oh, it's pretty expensive for the quality of work. Whereas I'm lucky that feedback and data gathering has been crucial for me to feel confident in charging the rates that I do, but also drop the imposter syndrome that the stuff I'm doing is having tangible impact.
Mate, incredible. It's such a, it is a serious balance, but it's unique and it's rare, but I think it's also the start of something pretty special so far as the kind of the shift towards profit for purpose type engagements and business. And look, I think it's just an exciting time to be doing what you're doing, because I think, you know, the fact that you can make this level of impact and build this level of community, you'll never know really just how much impact you make just by helping one individual with these three kind of habits. But
and that's the thing with the monetization of stuff. I was just going to thank you. I appreciate that. I was just going to say, I feel very privileged as well that I can give out podcast episodes for free. Like there's 600,000 people have downloaded my podcast, and that's a free resource. All these people are getting my 1% club for free. So me personally and morally, I feel a bit better and okay with what I charge for some of my keynotes, because I understand that, hey, there's a lot of my stuff is out there for free, and then you have to charge for other stuff. And it's just a business model that so many people are running on. Like if it was like expensive to be part of my club, and I'm not trying to make money at every corner, I'm just trying to make enough to survive and live a comfortable life. And yeah, if there's different creative ways to do that, whether it be through merch, podcast, workshops, different avenues to make money, I kind of find it fun. I think it's a big game. And then if you can make impact while you're making that money, that's a real trick to it. And then I feel like I've landed exactly there, which I am one of those really lucky people on this planet that gets paid very well, but also works in a job that they feel that purpose in, and it's making big impact.
I don't think there's a single piece of luck involved, mate. I think you've worked incredibly hard to, you know, learn the skills to give yourself what you want. Yeah, you've had fortune. You know, as you said at the start, you've had a lot of very fortunate to have the family and support networks around you. But you've created it for yourself, and kudos to you, mate. But look, that's all we have time for today. I genuinely thank you for everything you're doing. There is a network of people that are outside of your sphere of influence that see what you do, and genuinely appreciate it, mate. You're doing some incredible stuff, and the world is grateful. So keep it going. Thank you, and good on you.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it, mate. I think I'll finish with something real quickly that goes on your chasing good thing. One of the things I've been playing with, and where the Good Human Factory somewhat came from, is for me anyway, I've always had this inner, I call it my good human voice, the little like moral compass that we have that's telling, really, is that living up to your values? So for when it comes under the umbrella of chasing good, anyone listening, just try and listen to that voice a little bit more. Listen to that little voice that's making you be a bit more conscious of those choices. So for me, that's what chasing good is. Listening to that inner good human voice that we all have.
What a way to finish. Too good. Legend. Thank you so much, mate.
Beauty. Thanks, mate.
Thanks so much for listening to Chasing Good, a Circle Group podcast. Our mission is to shift the world closer to kindness, sustainability, awareness, and action. We hope you enjoyed. Until next time.